Hello, welcome back to the Desk Corner. Welcome to a new video, of course. Today's video is the second installment in my series. If you have not seen the first installment, I'll link it down below. It's called the Indigo Blue Phenomenon. But today we're going to take a closer look at the color we all thought that we knew, burnt sienna. I think we're going to have to do a bit of research into this. So we all know that burnt sienna is a very popular color that's a staple in so many different colored pencil, watercolor, and acrylic sets. Burnt sienna is a warm, kind of reddish brown tone, as we thought. However, if we take a look at the different variations of burnt sienna across different colored pencil sets, is that going to show enough difference to make us question what burnt sienna truly is, or are the differences subtle enough that we can all settle on some vague version of burnt sienna that we think to be true? Let's go ahead and compare some of the colored pencils that are very popular amongst artists and their versions of burnt sienna, and we can find out for ourselves. So here we have my little comparison chart, but before we get into that, I thought I would show you guys the pencils themselves. So already you could see just from the color dips or the color of the pencil that there are kind of like some variations between these, but there's no way to truly tell until we actually swatch them out and compare them. One thing I will say though is one of these stands out in particular, and it's actually a bit confusing, so we will talk about that once we get to swatching. And the results are a little bit surprising here because there are quite a few differences between some of these colors. Now, before I say anything, I'd like to ask you guys, and keep your answer in mind before I say anything, which color out of these 5 best represents burnt sienna to you? Which color is the color you think of when you think of burnt sienna? Keep that answer to yourself, and I'm going to tell you guys that what I think is that the Polychromos pencil actually best matches burnt sienna, and the Prisma is very close to the Polychromos. It's just a little bit lighter, I would say, but I would say that these two match my definition the most of what burnt sienna is. Now, if you look at the Luminance burnt sienna, this is on the darker and redder side for sure, and even when you look at the color dip at the end of the pencil, if that will focus, hopefully, you could see already that that is going to be very red and darker. And the Pablos is on just the redder side. It's actually not that much darker, it's just more on the red side of the spectrum. But the real confusing pencil here, the real like anomaly, is the Derwent Lightfasts, which to me, that looks like burnt ochre and what I think of when I think of burnt ochre. But instead it's labeled, and let me double check to make sure I don't have this wrong. Yep, it's labeled as burnt sienna. You could see that orange, very orange color dip at the end. And so this is where I start to question, what is burnt sienna meant to be? We all know that it's meant to be a reddish brown, except maybe the Derwent Lightfasts, which aren't really sure what it's supposed to be. But is it supposed to be a very reddish brown, or more like a brown with a little hint of red? Because I would say a brown with just a little bit of hints of red and warmth are what I think of, versus these very red versions up here, although the Pablos is not quite as, well, it is quite red. I was going to say though that the Luminance is just so dark, and I think that's what throws me off, because I don't really expect burnt sienna to be that dark. That being said though, even though I have all 5 versions of burnt sienna, it doesn't seem like it's a waste to have all 5 versions, because they're all different, and they are, well, there's just a variation between them. So even though I have the same color technically in 5 different sets, it doesn't seem like it matters too much. I'm going to have to look at the Lightfasts again, so I don't have the entire set. I just have like 3 or 4 open stock pencils, and I don't know if they offer a burnt ochre. If they do, what does the burnt ochre look like? Because this is what I would expect it to look like, to be honest. Also, I should note that Prismacolor is labeled sienna brown and not burnt sienna, but I thought I would include it anyways just to get a wider range. So what do you guys think? So again, tell me in the comments below which brand you think is the most accurate to your definition of burnt sienna, and if you were surprised at all by the variations. Now, I don't expect these pencil companies to be identical to each other in their colors, but when we talk about some of the very core colors like, I don't know, indigo blue, sienna, burnt ochre, maybe brown ochre, Payne's gray, and a few others, you would think that the colors would be quite similar because we all have sort of an agreement of what those colors are supposed to look like. But as I am proving through my experiment here, and hopefully, if this video does well, through more videos on this topic of color variations, that they actually are quite different. And is this an issue or is this a positive? To me, this might just be a positive because we get more colors, and for those of us that like to hoard and collect colored pencils, I said hoard, I meant collect, of course. But for those of us that are collectors of colored pencils and different art supplies, I guess it makes us feel less bad because it's not like we have the identical version of every single color just because we have different sets. But on the other hand, could this be a bit confusing to people who are trying to learn about colors or who are trying to decide which set to buy, as you're going to get a different variation of a lot of different colors? Just another factor to think about, I suppose. I hope that you guys found this video interesting or entertaining. I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you'd like to see more out of this series, let me know. Don't forget to check out the indigo blue phenomenon, which I will link down below as I mentioned before, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching as always. Bye!